So we know that we shouldn't be sending angry letters or angry emails to other people, but how do you know if your message is an angry one? In this video, I'm going to show you 4 ways for you to identify and know if your letter is an angry one. This topic came up recently when my mother asked me if a message that she had, if it was assertive or not. I read it and it was 2 or 3 pages long. It was a message that she was going to share, read out loud to one of her staff, one of her employees. I read it, and as soon as I read it, I didn't even have to get very far. I knew that was not a letter meant to be read or shared in any way. I knew instantly that that was an angry letter. But she had not noticed. And from her perspective, it was an assertive letter and an assertive communication. What is it that you do, or what is it that I saw in that letter that instantly showed me this is not assertive, this is an angry letter? Well, I'm going to share that with you. If you are upset with someone, write a letter to them, but don't send a letter, especially if you answer yes to any of the questions that I'm going to share with you below. Now, when you are calm, then you can have a conversation, an assertive conversation with them. Have you ever written an email or a letter to someone that you are super frustrated with? Right? We all have at some point. It's tempting to send a scathing message to someone to prove them wrong or to express how miserable they made you feel or they made our life be, because it's really good to get that, express ourselves and kind of vent off. Now, the problem is when the main goal of your message, your letter, your email is to vent off that frustration that you have and to prove yourself right to the other person, then that's not going to be effective. That's not going to help. Right? They're not assertive. They don't address the problem. They don't improve the relationship. They don't change the behavior of that other person. They won't make you feel better either. And they cause a lot of friction, and they just get zero empathy from the other person. Quite to the contrary, they might hate you, or be even more difficult with you as a result of that. There's a great Chinese proverb that says, never write a letter while you are angry, especially if you don't want to have regrets later. Angry letters, they're awesome, right? They're great if you make them, you write them, and then you don't send them, because they really help you cope, process those emotions, cope with the frustration, name the negative emotions, and then release them. So, as I said, let me give you 4 ways that you can identify if your letter, your message is an angry one, and therefore can make the problems worse, so it's better to not send them. Number 1, check if it is very lengthy, right? Is it a very long message? Is it a very long email or a letter? And does it have like big chunky paragraphs, right? When that is not your normal, especially when that's not your normal communication, but in general as well. Because long letters or emails that are more than a few paragraphs long, they're just too long. People don't read long messages. And even if they do read them, they're not going to remember anything. They're not going to pay attention to it. And they're not going to take any action. It's just not something that people feel engaged with. So lengthy letters and messages, that's for you. That's not for them, right? That's a good sign. And my mother's message was very long. So that was my first sign. Second, check. Do you plan to send it to the person kind of ahead of time, sort of send it, hit the send button on email, or take a letter and drop it under the door, or to actually have a conversation? And my mother actually planned to have a conversation, which is great. But a lot of people just want to hit the send button and run away. And because it feels safer to have a conversation when you're not present, right? Because it's just not as hard. But it's a false sense of safety. It's because it's uncomfortable to confront the person that you want to deal with when you're frustrated with them, and in a direct way. So it's very easy to hide, right? That's our natural tendency, is to hide physically ourselves. But that makes the communication unidirectional. At that point, you can't read their body language. They're reading, and you have no idea what, how they look like, what they're thinking. You won't get any truthful feedback from them at all, because you won't see their body language and their gestures and their facial expressions. And because of that, you can't adjust your message as you go, right? That's one of the beautiful things of a dialogue, is that you might have something planned, but then as you start engaging with that person, you might start changing a little bit your narrative or your arguments, or you might sit back and listen a little bit more, you might speak more, you might be more energetic or softer based on how that person reacts, right? That's the whole basis of a dialogue. You're leveraging all that nonverbal behavior. But also, when you just write a letter and you give it to them, you're missing out on the most powerful use of tools that you have, which is your own body language and your own verbal expression, your tone, your volume, your everything about the actual in-person conversation, or even over the phone or over the Zoom, right? You miss out on all of those tools that are the most powerful tools for you to communicate something to the other person, other than the words, right? Other than the written words. When you don't have those elements, then you're missing out on effectiveness, you're missing out on a powerful communication. And that's not great for you. And then not only that, if you just send it to the person, right? Just send the email, you might never hear back from them, right? And that's a terrible feeling to never hear back from them. So it becomes this monologue that it's just you talking to yourself. So it's better not to send it in that case, right? That way you'll know that is not a message worth sharing at that point in time. And number 3, do you make someone else responsible for your frustrations? Do you, instead of assuming responsibility for what you're feeling and what's going on with you, do you blame somebody else for it? And how do you know that? Just go through your text and look for the phrases that start with you, followed by something negative, like a negative accusation. You did this, you did that, you made me feel like this, right? That also creates a situation where you are, in your letter, assuming that the person has a negative intent towards you, that they want to be bad, that they want to hurt you somehow. And in most situations, that's just not the case, right? And in most cases, you can also find at least partial responsibility for the problem, especially if it's been there for a long period of time and you haven't done anything about it. So just by blowing off on somebody else and not assuming the responsibility for your own feelings, which is, by the way, it's based on your interpretation of the facts, right? And not taking responsibility for any action or anything related to that, that means that you're not doing your part, right? That is not a truthful statement. It's one-sided. You're not acknowledging your part. So you're missing a whole side of the message, and when the person reads that, they're going to get angry because they're going to notice that you're missing out on all the responsibility. You're not taking responsibility for your part. And then number 4, do you generalize? Do you use weeping generalizations, right? Which is very common when people are upset. They tend to blame others, saying, you are always this, or you never do that. And these are just sweeping generalizations. They're not true. In most of the cases, they're not true, because you can't say always or never, right? If you have to say something, you must be specific about the exact situation, exact moment when something happened. And maybe it was 3 times, maybe it was 5 times, but you need to keep count of these things. It's definitely not an always or a never. And when you use those words, it becomes irrational, right? It's not the truth. It's blameful, it's blaming, and it's not going to be received well. It's not going to be heard. It's not going to be listened to, and you're not going to get any empathy for that. In those cases, you have an angry letter that you better not share with anyone. If you feel frustrated with someone, just write a letter to yourself. Keep it to yourself. It's great. It's going to help you vent off and feel better. And then a few days later, you can plan a much shorter conversation to address the issues with a very specific request and follow-up, and that's going to work a lot better for you. I wanted to share with you, if you like this and you want to learn more of how to be assertive, how to communicate in a powerful and confident and effective way, then I invite you to check assertiveway.com/free. I have tons of free resources and trainings and one-pagers that you will certainly enjoy that teaches this and a lot more things. I also have a blog at assertiveway.com, so assertiveway.com/free, and I will share a lot of this information with you there. So check that out. Make sure that you sign up and get some of these freebies that I've created for you guys. Remember what I said today? Angry letters are not meant to be shared. How do you know if you have an angry letter? If it's very lengthy and has like big chunky paragraphs, if you plan to send it and not be present in the delivery, right, and not talk to the person live, if you make other people responsible for your frustrations, things that go wrong and how you feel, and if you use generalizations like you always do this or you never do that. Those are no-nos. Don't send that. Don't hit the send button. Keep it to yourself. You know, once you learn this and you start observing how you react when you are angry, it becomes much easier to deal with the situation and to know when to send and when not to send, when to keep it to yourself, how to change the letter, and it really makes everything easier. I'm gonna make another video on a few tips to make sure that your letter when you're angry is actually helpful and effective. So you can see that here as well. And please, if you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe. I will have on average about one video a week for you guys on how to have confident conversations in general, but also specifically at work, so that you can empower yourself and grow and become more powerful and get recognized at work. And also leave a comment if you like this video. Give it a like, share it with someone that you care about. Have a wonderful day, my friends. Thank you so much.